All right, cool. So, hi, everybody. Welcome. I am Ryan J. Downey with Screen Crusades and KNOTFEST.com. I have with me some of the fantastic cast from the new film Alive. And why don't each of you introduce yourselves, and then we'll start talking about this movie.
Okay.
Don't all of you start at once.
Hi, I'm Thomas COCQUEREL. I play the male patient in this film Alive that we shot about 3 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Camille Stops, and I play the female patient.
And I'm Angus MacFadyen. I play the doctor.
And having seen the film, I'm now terrified of you, even via Zoom. So you got
Excellent.
that going for you. So one of the things that I always find fascinating about films that use the narrative device of, protagonists that are unsure of their identity and environment and location, and when you start films that way, how do you best push this kind of movie on your friends without giving too much away? I always find that I ran into this recently with the movie Antebellum also, where, there's secrets that you don't want to spoil, but you also want to make sure that people watch it because it's a great ride, So what have you found has been your go-tos when you're telling even friends and family about this movie you made without giving it away? If each of you could tell me how you explain it, what your pitch is, so to speak, to your pals. Camille, why don't we start with you first, because you're on the top of my Brady Bunch square.
Okie dokie. I think this is my pitch. I would describe this movie as a man and a woman wake up in a hospital and they don't know who they are, where they are, or what's happening. And basically, it's their quest to find their identities and to figure out what this situation is. And I leave it at that, really. And if it's somebody that I have a lot of friends that I'm going to say are a little skittish with horror films or psychological thrillers, this is, I'm going to say this leans more towards the psychological thriller aspect. Although there's some blood, it's not like gratuitous or, it really impacts your mind. That's what I say.
I just say it's a modern day Frankenstein type movie.
Interesting. Yeah, it does have some of that archetype motifs.
Yeah,
going in it. Yeah. How about you, Tom?
I probably went too far. I said it was just a guy and a girl that wake up in a hospital and their caretaker, their doctor, when they want to leave. They're not knowing anything, of course, waking up, not knowing who they are and what's going on. When they feel well enough and they're ready to leave, doesn't want to let them leave. And I say it's a bit of a cat and mouse in an abandoned hospital.
Nice. I love that convention, and it's not as though it's one we see a lot, but when we do see it done, it's always exciting to me. I just watched the film Death of Me, and that movie begins with a man and a woman. They wake up knowing who they are, but having lost the last 24 hours or so, and not knowing what happened or how they ended up where they are, and that sort of thing. And it has a similar sort of race to uncover the clues about what's happening to them or what might happen to them. And this is in a totally different environment than that, and manages to have a different tone and a different pace, I think, even than similar sort of setups. What was it about the story idea, the script, that attracted each of you to this?
I think
just on
that note before, I think that concept of amnesia and the not knowing the past and how to move forward is a great setup for a thriller. And I don't think, in my experience, I haven't seen it much. Apart from the Bourne series, and that's his journey, is finding out who he is, and these people chase him and not knowing your past. But I haven't really seen it too much. And that was the real job for us, is as actors, you do all this background work, you know, like, this is who I am. The job is to understand your character and your past and where you've been to be able to move forward. I guess it was it was a joy not having to do anything like that. You know, it's just every day was a new experience, and we could just approach it in that way.
Camille, how about you? What was your attraction to this when you first heard about it and first read about it?
I came onto this, I don't know, 3 days before is when I got the script, and I was out in Vancouver, so things were very quick. It was a lot of quick processing, and my first impression when I read it was, oh my God, this is going to be living in such a heightened emotional situation for so many days in a row shooting. This is going to be flippin' exhausting. That's what my first impression was, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do this, and then just on a plane, and then they're shooting. So there was no time to think, which was probably beneficial to the situation.
That's great for the whole premise. Yeah, you don't know much about your character, and you're thrown into the situation. It's exactly where your character is.
I thought the complete opposite, stupidly. I read it, and I was like, oh, they're in a bed the whole time. I was like, this will be a piece of cake.
Oh my God.
Just gonna lay there for the whole movie.
So
there's
wrong.
a lot of gurney laying.
I have to say that I felt so sorry for both of you every day coming to work, because I would just saunter in 5 minutes before and slip on my gown and no hair, no makeup, and just and show up. And these guys had been like 2 hours already in makeup, and they're like completely covered in red sticky goo, and would stay in that all day. And it was just like, I really did feel, I really had a tremendous sense of compassion for you guys, which was kind of difficult because there I was playing this complete monster who doesn't give a shit about anybody. So I think I had the hardest job of everybody. It was just trying not to weep for you guys all day.
Actively looking for the
in
opposite.
the back of my mind, reminding myself, never accept a job where you just have to be covered in red blood all day, because it's just like, it's horrendous to get on and then get off, and like, you know, it's just disgusting.
I mean, A Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite horror film of all time, and obviously Robert Englund made multiple movies, and there was a TV series, and he did all kinds of promotional appearances. And yeah, when you speak with him, which I've had the great pleasure to be able to do a few times, you know, had he any idea about how much time in the makeup chair he was signing up for? You know, like to just sit there hour after hour after hour and have all of that put on, and you know, it's quite a commitment, especially, you know, for films like this that require, you know, real effects and real prosthetics and fake blood and
a huge part of the job on this too is the continuity of those bandages, because we don't start bloody, and you know, like all film, it's not shot in sequence, so we had to, you know, we'd start some days at the end of the film and then have to go back and clean up and rebandage and find a way to match what we were doing in other parts of the film. So that was also another hurdle.
Angus, where do you feel that the Doctor fits into, you know, sort of the great pantheon of, I mean, you mentioned Dr. Frankenstein. You know, when we think about these titular sort of torture maniac villains in the genre, where do you feel that the Doctor fits in? Which sort of archetypes would you say he would be comfortable around?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm thinking, you know, you have your
fitting around.
You have your, let's say, calm, silent stalker type slasher killers, your Jasons, your Michael Myers. You have your witty, nightmarish Freddy Krueger, and then of course, you know, throughout classic literature, as you mentioned, Dr. Frankenstein, and you know, all sorts of the different maniacs that fans of the horror genre have seen. What was your approach to?
Yeah, I suppose he's like a control freak, you know, that he doesn't. There's a deep insecurity inside him, you know. I think there was at some point we were almost discussing that he himself had maybe been put together by a previous doctor, and that he himself was the product of something which an experiment and now he was continuing that in that sense of that everything is a cycle. Violence is a cycle. So that was the idea, to try and give him some sort of psychological reality, so that you're not just playing something which is you don't really know a lot about certain characters, like the characters you just mentioned. They don't necessarily have a psychological realism. They just exist because they're evil, personified.
Yeah, it
Whereas
sounds
I
like,
think he's more realistic than that. Somewhat.
yeah, and it sounds like there's a great pitch in there for an alive prequel, maybe in graphic novel form or some other medium, of how the Doctor ended up where he was and who he was. That's pretty fascinating. Now, you guys mentioned before we jumped on, it's been a few years since production wrapped on this film, and of course, given the pandemic and so on, and a lot of movies being postponed and rescheduled and all of that. Certainly, this is a bit of a longer wait than you would have anticipated. Have you all had a chance to see the finished film yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen the final, the cut that they're currently releasing. I'm not sure about that. But I did see it at a festival when it came to my home city, Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went and saw that there. Yeah.
And had it been,
I think that was when I saw a version. I saw a screener or something.
Mm-hmm.
and
But
having
I'm
had,
not sure if it's the one.
having had so much distance from the production of the movie to the release of the film, when that happens, do you find new things about it, or things that you wish you might have done differently, or do you second guess things? Do you have a different perspective on the whole thing? I'm always curious how that.
I think it's like you have problems actually remembering
You're right.
anything, because it's been 3 years and we're all like I think that's why there's these pauses, because we're actually trying to remember what went down and like what we were thinking at the time and all of that, because it's been quite a long time. And it's not like I don't know. I mean, Camille, you have some notes, right?
Yeah. What do you need to know? Do you want to remember about the safety pin holding your glasses together?
Oh yeah, I still have that.
I think watching. Do you still have that?
Yeah, I still have the glasses. Or maybe these are a new set, but they're being held together with a piece of tape right now because it's quarantine still.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think that it's hard when you're removed by a couple of years, and like this work that we do as actors that's on screen and now exists, and it's something you did 3 years ago, and hopefully as a human, you're continuing to grow, and as an actor, you're continuing to grow. So I think whenever you're in a situation that you're watching old work, you kind of feel like, I don't know, that was then. Like, and you're moving forward and onto new films. And with this one, for me, I feel like it has a very special place in my heart for shooting it and working with these guys and the collaboration of it all. And I mean, my work's just changed, and I've kept going on my life journey. Maybe that's a little convoluted. I don't know.
No,
but
that makes perfect sense. That's how I would imagine it to be, having not experienced,
yeah,
making something creative and then not sharing it with the world for 3 years. I mean, that just always sounds like kind of a fascinating relationship to the art that you've made, that it's,
right.
I mean, a lot of painters finish the painting and then someone sees it the next day, or a band finishes an album and they're these days, putting it up on Spotify 2 weeks later or whatever, so this idea of like, you put all this into your performance and then no one sees it for 3 years. I don't know, it's fascinating.
And you don't know what shots they used, what choices they used. Rob used to I remember Rob, the director, yelling from behind the camera, like for me to do it on a whole range of ways. So like we'd start doing a scene relatively relaxed, and we'd kind of amp it up. And it would be at a point at the end of it where it was like really, really effing intense. I don't know if I'm allowed swearing on these things ever.
Oh, you are. It's not fest.com. We swear all the time.
My gosh. Yeah. So you have very little idea of what the end product's gonna actually be like. I don't know if that's different for you guys, like Angus, Tom. I don't know. I'm always like, who knows what they chose? There was a lot of different shit in there.
Yeah, I heard that shit. Go for it.
Yeah.
I think watching it back, I felt I had like a physical instinct to just how tough it was. Physically, it was grueling for Camille and I, and it was freezing. And that hospital was empty and just as cold inside as it was outside, and we were barely wrapped up. And it was a tough physical shoot, but that's the joy. That's the joy of this game. And we had so much fun doing it because we're running around screaming, and Camille and I really had way more fun than you'd even realize watching it. I remember this one day when I had a really simple line. We're running through one of the hallways, and we find something. We find these footsteps, and I had 2 words I had to say, which was no way. I just couldn't get the words out without bursting into laughter. And I had to give the line to Camille because we turned the corner and I'd see them and I'd just be like, no way.
Corpsing, like we shot that so many times. Tom, every time we were just dying.
Corpsing is like my favorite thing. I've spent so many hours on YouTube, especially for some reason with the different Ricky Gervais shows, him and Stephen Merchant, when they get to corpsing throughout, especially extras. I've watched this stuff so much time, so it's doubly hilarious to me to think about a film like this one that's tense and a psychological thriller and horrifying and intimate and small, and the actors are corpsing in the middle of those situations.
There was a lot of fun. We really had a great time making it.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
I was thinking that there's an element of it which of the isolation and that the characters went through, which we would understand so much better now after the last 6 months of what's been going on. It just occurred to me that was an element of the film which we were doing, but now it's like, like those months when we were all stuck in a room for by ourselves for months. That's what that feels like. That sense of anxiety and things, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, we've all been living our private, personal, and live for the last few months.
True. I'm gonna say there's another thing for me personally that I got to experience after shooting this. I had a concussion, a really bad one, about a year ago.
Oh no!
And I got to experience, and I still experience a little bit now. I'm almost totally recovered, but not quite. And so the impact that it had on your brain and a brain state that's foggy and unclear, and how you live through that and how you keep living through it is such an interesting thing. And it's very hard to imagine without actually experiencing it. And so that's something that, looking back, you're like, oh, if I had this experience as a human, I definitely would have applied it.
Mm.
Did I ever tell you guys about, like, 3 years before we did that, I was in Winnipeg and I was doing a Western and I fell off the horse. The horse like threw me and I whacked the back of my head and woke up 10 minutes later. And for about 20 minutes, I had no idea who the people who were like acting in the movie with me were. I said, where am I? They said, you're in Canada. I said, where's that? I had no idea what Canada was, what anything was, who I was, it was like the freakiest. It's really terrifying, amnesia, because you've been wiped clean, and it's a really terrifying thing.
That is terrifying.
Did we ever talk about that?
And then to think about it being a period movie that you're making, as things start coming back to you, then all of a sudden you might think like, wait, is this am I in the Old West?
yeah, who am I? Like, who are the, and they were all going, Angus, are you okay? And I said, I don't, who are you?
Wow.
Where am I? And they said, you're in Canada, in Winnipeg, you're doing a show. I said, where's Canada? What is Canada? It was really freaky.
Wow.
I must have mentioned that to you guys.
I think that it was early days. I think you maybe mentioned that, but it was early days. So for me, I have
Right.
trouble holding on to early days things because I'm just dealing with so much my own anxiety or whatever. I gotta get out of my own way to be able to listen.
Well,
Yeah.
the amnesia that's happened to all of us about 6 months ago. We're like, who am I? Where am I? What's happening? So I would imagine shooting a film that is, a part of the tension of it is that it's claustrophobic. I would imagine that a movie like this is in some ways not unlike theater, right? Like a stage play where it's a smaller number of actors and locations. Would you liken it to that experience as opposed to other movies and TV shows you guys have done, or did this,
No, because you're shooting out of order, so it's not really. And you're shooting. You don't have 3 weeks rehearsal.
Right. That's true.
No,
Yeah.
we that day before where we got to read the whole script with the three of us, which was really crucial. And that I guess was a little closer to it. I think the only thing that resembled was that it was a small cast and that it was just the three of us, and we got to work with each other and know each other very well. And we didn't have any extras. We didn't really, work with, apart from bits at the, it was just us. So that would be the only part that kind of likened it to theater, I think.
Yeah. And also, didn't we get together? We got together every week to kind of work the next week's scenes, which I don't know, doesn't usually happen. I'm going to say, especially on indie films, you wouldn't be getting together on the Saturday to your day off to figure out what the next week was. But that speaks to, I think, the collaborative process that Rob, Jules, and Chuck all wanted, and that we wanted to. Like Angus, especially for the Doctor, you contributed a lot to how you felt like he would be in those scenes, and to be able to improv and put your own voice in there, which I think is to your credit in the end performance, and why it's so, like, it kept us really on edge because you never quite knew what was gonna come out in a scene with Angus, which was awesome. Yeah.
Thoughts, Angus? I'd love to hear your take on that.
No, I think that's, I mean, I do remember we would because the load was so heavy each day that it was just the three of us. There was no time really, and so the weekends were taken up by and we did quite, I think we would do like 6 hours or something, whatever it took to get that the next week.
Yeah.
Just because, and I think it's because we were so much shooting. We were shooting out of order, weren't we? As much, quite a lot of it was out of order. So it's really difficult to you got to get your head around where exactly you are, especially with a script like this, because it's so. I mean, I think mostly I had all the lines, but you guys had all of that physical, the physicality of where you're at that moment, and how much you've recovered, and how well you can walk or limp, or how much pain you're in. So because you're playing the reality of the violence, as opposed to people can be hit over the head with a lead pipe and they dust it off like it's nothing, which is more like a superhero film. So that reality to get that is so important to sell the tension of the film. So it was really about exactly where are we at that moment and what's going on, and also for you guys, it was like, how much do we believe this guy? Where are we at in the trust thing here? And also, I remember we introduced that thing because I said it would be interesting to the part of the plan was not that he wanted both of them to survive, but that he wanted to split them and divide and rule, that old tactic. And so he was going to use the male and turn her against him, and that she would become less human because she would eventually decide that he has to be killed in order for us to move on. So it made it even more creepy, and introducing that kind of stuff. Where exactly were we at that moment in that storyline, and how much did she believe that she was going to do that, or how much was she acting to cover up that she was not going to do that? And so all of that was, and none of it was really spoken. So we had to really know where we were at psychologically, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that was one of the hardest parts to really wrap your head around. Totally. Yeah. How do I feel about you right now? Because it's so
right.
Changing, depending on what conversation, our characters, Tom and my characters, had before that, or how he treated us, or what Angus had given us. Yeah, how do we feel about it? And then, how damaged are you? That was hard to figure out some of that, physicality, because it does have to get to a point. You do have to heal enough to be able to run.
Yeah.
And and then how to do that. Tom, just in my head.
I was lucky because I hated the Doctor from the start, and I just knew I knew it was wrong, and my through line was pretty easy. But you did that so perfectly, Camille. You did it so beautifully, and you see that. There's a scene halfway through where you are on the fence, and your performance, when I saw it, was out of control. It's so beautiful, and you handled it with such precision and detail. I thought you nailed it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nate.
Lovely. And Angus, you have also worked as a director. I'm curious how that does that experience as a director, how that informs your performance as an actor. Having, I guess, maybe a more well-rounded overview of the whole thing, or do you keep the things totally separate?
I like to just be immersed in the character, and try not to be on the outside, so it's really nice when you can just hand yourself over to a director and trust them. But sometimes that doesn't happen, so you find yourself looking after yourself so you don't get egg all over, with the choices which are being, you feel like you don't really feel comfortable doing something. I think we pretty much had a very good rapport with a lot of us. It was a very small crew, and as we said, just the three of us. And so, we and what you find when you're doing films like this is you actually kind of need a lot of hilarity to ensue, because it's all so dark and dank and seedy, and there's all of these bits of corpse and it's all a bit like it can weigh down on you. So you try and like people are like these two were kind of like, you two went both kind of mad over the 3 weeks. You were like running around like crazies, covered in blood, and they were like just laughing hysterically at everything, and it was just like, and like they developed this sort of thing. It was kind of fascinating, because I guess it was what was able you to get through each day, because those days were tough for you guys.
Yeah, we had the most hilarious time on set, right? Like, I think that even from breakfast, showing up to hair and makeup in the morning, we'd put on an album. We just started laughing. We would just start laughing as that blood continuity is going on, getting painted on, and the bandages are going on. Like, you're like, am I seriously getting into this again today? Like, did you guys not have the best sleeps of your life because you just expended all of your energy in like highs and lows and all over the map? You get home, you just be like, oh, Joey's, and passed out. It was
like just the nature of it. I mean, even though it can get you down, it's ridiculous to be bloodied up like that, and you think you're fine, and then you walk past a mirror and you're like, what? Who am I? What's happening to me? There was even a staircase that was covered with blood, and I remember Camille and I had to run up and down it, and we got halfway up, and then our feet got stuck, and we practically got glued to the staircase, and we couldn't move anymore, and we'd be like practically sawn off it to be free. It was crazy. It was so funny.
Mm-hmm. And before we do the running through the halls scenes, if they were really scary ones, Tom would usually scare me beforehand. I would try to scare him, but I never successfully, I don't think, did. But he'd scare the shit out of me. And then they'd be like rolling, and I'd be like, holy fuck, just running. So it was really a lot of fun. But you're just living a really heightened emotion. So you're swinging like constantly into like madness and then tears. Like that's, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those kind of stories from behind the scenes too, because it reminds me of in Scream, one of my other favorite horror films of all time. There's a great anecdote about Drew Barrymore, who of course is in the opening scene of that movie. She's a big animal lover, as I am, and apparently Wes Craven would tell her real life stories of animal cruelty in between takes to keep her crying hysterically to get through that first scene. And yeah, I think fun scares of each other is probably a little less sadistic than that. But I do always appreciate those bits of motivation and how you get yourself there emotionally when you have to be getting there over and over and over to get the job done. Camille, you mentioned putting on music, which segues perfectly into one of the last things I wanted to talk to you about. What were you guys listening to on set, and are all of you or any of you the kind of actors that put something in your earbuds to get psyched up, or play something in the makeup trailer, or was there music happening, and if so, what was it and how did it help?
I can speak to I use music a little bit in my work. It depends, but I do find that depending on where my mental state is just as a human that day, sometimes I find some music is really nice to just set you into a certain emotional state. I think I was listening to some, a dear friend of mine had gone through a really, really difficult, tragic event in his life. And some of the songs that I'm going to say I associated with him, I was listening to a little bit just when there were some pretty difficult scenes. I'm not going to speak to what he went through and stuff, but yeah, yes, I use music. And then Tom and I used music in the makeup room, but that was just for fun. That was probably to ignore getting into the
cool off at the end of the day because we were going crazy. But I use music a lot too, and I remember being a little frustrated, if anything, on this, that I couldn't, because of the nature of it. We were tied up and in beds, and I like to really pop an earbud out right before going into a scene and carrying that through. But for this, I listened to a lot of like heavy rock. I felt like this guy was lost and came from an angry past, and he couldn't understand it, and that helped me carry him through. But I remember not really being able to use it much and having to rely on other things just because of the nature of the job and not being able to listen to it, being tied to bed.
You were tied up so much of it. I was less tied than you, so I guess I probably had more access to my headphones.
Way less tied.
Like, you were tied up so much.
I mean, without giving away the film, there was a day when I couldn't have my mouth, right? And something happens and I didn't have access to my mouth for a few hours. It was like 7 hours when I couldn't talk.
And weren't we trying to like bust you up laughing?
And I remember I had a notepad and a pen to write notes to Rob, the director, if I wanted to talk about. And I love talking about a scene and about what's happening. And that day I just couldn't. And then I'd be tied down and I'd want my notepad and trying to like tell people with just my head, and they were like, "Oh, more water," and they'd stick a straw in my mouth. I was like, "No, I want my notepad." But it's all part of the magic, you know.
And we were able to like poke you and do all kinds of things, and you couldn't do anything. You could like
say anything.
And like try and like make fun of you and like try and get you to laugh, and you couldn't.
And Tom, I got to ask you, I mean, it's knotfest.com. We cover a lot of bands in our family of bands like Slipknot and Lamb of God and Megadeth. And so when you say heavy rock, I got to ask you for specifics. What are some?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you. I knew this would come up, and it was actually just it was a Spotify playlist. I just went into like, heavy rock and skipped through stuff. Because I don't really know much of it myself. Classic rock and more 60s, 70s stuff, and the heavy metal stuff isn't something I know. So it was kind of a nice opportunity for me to hear stuff I didn't know. I think that's what you try to do. I think if you listen to stuff that you know too well, even if it has an emotional connection to you, but this was an opportunity to step into a world that I didn't know, and that's why I picked that sort of stuff.
And it speaks volumes to the importance of Spotify playlists these days, which is like
Yeah.
much more important for bands to get on the right playlist than it is to get on the right radio station. And this is exactly why.
Yeah.
I feel like our characters had to live through, I don't know what the band's name is, but you might, Ryan. You know that song, It's Just One of Those Days?
Yeah,
that's like what our characters perpetually had to live through.
It was just one of those days.
Is that what it's called? It is.
Yeah. It's I think the song is called Break Stuff, but yeah, that's the line.
Yes, that's what it's called.
Yeah. I'm saying your movie was just one of those days for the actors and the characters.
Exactly.
Lastly, while I have all of you here, and it's been lovely to talk with each of the three of you, why don't you tell me a little bit about what we can see you in next, either stuff that's been finished that has yet to come out, or things that you're gearing up to work on if and when work resumes in the world. What's coming up for each of you? Tom, we can start with you because you've moved to the top corner of my Brady Bunch square right now. So,
ooh, moved up in the world.
In Hollywood Squares, you're the winner.
Yeah, I'm so glad I got to do this film when I did. I've never really worked in the genre before, but I did another film last year, a sequel of Escape Room 2. So I shot that last year. That should be coming out, I think, early next year. And then I've just moved to New York. I'm actually in quarantine for 2 weeks at the moment. We're about to start shooting. It's a period show for HBO called The Gilded Age by the Downton Abbey creators.
Oh, nice. Believe it or not, I love Downton Abbey. I still haven't seen the film. I saw every episode of the show, but I still need that. It reminds me I still need to watch the film.
Yeah. There's a currency to his work that it's very detailed, authentic period. And it's pretty cool. The research stuff that we've done and the background work on this has been pretty exciting. It's about the high life of New York in the 1880s. Yeah. So
a little earlier than Downton Abbey, but
before Downton Abbey, same creators, but way before Downton Abbey.
Yeah. Well, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Angus, how about you, sir?
Well, I had a film, Robert the Bruce, which I spent 13 years trying to get made, which finally did get made, and that released on streaming this summer. So that's out there, and I've got I directed Macbeth a few years back, which I'm finally getting out. I'm hoping to get out there this year. I'm just in post-production now.
Nice.
Maybe a Western, but it's just really tough right now for indies because they want bonds for insurance purposes because of this whole thing, and that's just extremely expensive. So it seems to be slowing up a lot of stuff going on.
I gotta give a shout out to Macbeth, as that was for me as a teenager. That was the first Shakespeare that I ever really connected with, and I'm sure it's the goth sensibilities and the supernatural elements and things like that, but Shakespeare seeming like something that was very foreign, literally and figuratively to me, a kid growing up in Indiana, to then being presented with Macbeth and going like, oh wait, this is cool. this is badass. This is like
Yeah.
dark and there's a lot of depth into the themes. Everything that was a nice doorway for me to then get into other things of that nature. So it's awesome. You did that's one of those stories that's told and retold, and it's always exciting from different angles and the different ways that it can be told. So I think it will be getting made forever, I hope.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
Camille, how about you?
Interpretation.
Yeah, exactly. Camille, how about you?
I haven't worked in the genre again since Alive, but it's something that I definitely would really like to do. It's exhausting, but it's a lot of fun. And I did really appreciate about this film that the character I got to play wasn't classic female horror victim, which I don't know how interested in that role that I would be, but in something that has some strength and stuff like that, that's very appealing. And I've shot a couple of indie films that are still in post over the last couple of years, and I'm currently in Ottawa. I'm about to go to camera on a Lifetime movie, so
Nice.
that's gonna be that's gonna be a
that
rock.
room you're in looks a lot like the hotel we were in Calgary.
Does it?
Yeah,
it's a
it looks-
rental townhouse. Everyone in Ottawa has townhouses.
It just reminds me of the room that we would rehearse in.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So,
I was like, wait a minute, are you back there?
Imagine I'm back at the Eau Claire. Or
Yeah, I was
wherever
gonna say, if you are in a hotel, don't say the name of it.
No. Just Ottawa, general.
Bunch of horror fans watching this Q&A. Oh, I'm sorry. Where is that again? Yes, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But this film will have a nice dark, I'm not gonna say twist, but it'll be dark. Yeah.
Very nice. Hey, Lifetime movies can be dark. I mean, there's
It
a lot of wives killing their husbands in those movies.
Will that be me? I don't know.
Well, guys, thank you so much, all three of you, for zooming in with us here and letting us get this Q&A out to the world and for people to hear more about the experience of making this movie, whether they've just watched the film or whether they have yet to. I think they'll get something out of hearing from the three of you. So thanks so much for joining us.
Cheers.
Over at KNOTFEST.com.
Thank you.
Camille, Thomas, thank you. It's been great to see you guys again.
Hey, great to see you too.
And I love, there you both are in your hotels at work. I'm still stuck in Panama. We can't leave. There's no flights yet. We're stuck in quarantine 6 months now.
Wow.
That's
I haven't left this island for 6 months. I feel like I'm in Papillon. I'm going to put the coconuts together and try and swim away from Devil's Island.
Oh.
That's a film
At
I'd
least
watch.
you're in tropical area,
Yeah, I get to go to the beach every day.
Canadian winter, I am not looking forward to. It's going to be hard. And but I'm allowed to move around the province and work. So yeah, I feel for you.
That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was great to virtually meet each of you, and hopefully we get a chance to do it in real life someday.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
This is the facsimile for now. We're playing the hand we were dealt.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day, and everybody check out their movie Alive.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. Love ya.